Okay, let's go. Today, if you're awake and you're alive and you're paying any attention to the news media, you know we had a little bit of an issue. There was an issue regarding racism and bias in Philadelphia, and at a Starbucks store, where the police were called, and there were two black gentlemen who came in to use the toilet. The staff said, you can't use the toilet, you can only use the toilet if you're paying customers. So it appears as though they sat down, said, all right, we're going to hang out here. And the manager called the police on them and said, hey, these guys are trespassing, and so on and so forth, right? And then the police came and they arrested them, took them out, but they ended up not charging them with anything. And we're going to come back to that. But what the conversation that is taking place right now is a conversation about implicit bias. And implicit bias is bias that we don't see and we don't recognize and we don't notice. And it is a bias that lies or rests within us, but we aren't aware of it in any conscious way. So even like me, I have implicit biases. I have biases. It might seem that I don't. Well, some of you probably think I'm really biased. Maybe you think I'm biased against one group or another or whatever. But relative to most people, and certainly most Americans, I think I'm really relatively free of the major and basic biases. I think, I travel, I talk to people, I meet people, I'm really open to lots of different people. But I have biases. And I have biases that I don't see, I don't understand, I don't know about, and I will never see, understand, or know about. I will never be in touch with them because they're deep in my subconscious. And so that's what implicit bias is. And so the conversation right now with the Starbucks situation is like, why'd they call, we need to look at this. Like, why are you calling the police on some people and not other people? Like, what's going on here? So we're going to spend the whole class doing that. And next slide. So here's yesterday there was a protest, or a couple days ago. So it's happening, right? So we're going to look at implicit bias. But next slide, we have a guest today, and our guest is A.J. Wagner, this fine young man right here, who is, wait, you're older than me, right? Aren't you? All right, that's good. All right, this gentleman right here. AJ, and AJ is here. Well, hang on. You're on.
There we go.
AJ, say hello.
There we go. Well, first of all, hello. Secondly, the woman behind me, she'd be the better person, but she's babysitting.
All right, okay.
Watching the grandkids.
That's your better half.
Much better half.
AJ comes to us from Ohio, the fair state of Ohio. And AJ is a former judge. And whenever I talk about these issues in class, AJ, I always say to myself, I get to this place where I say, God, I really wish I had a judge who we could talk to and find out what's going on.
Stop by more often, I think. Yeah.
How many years were you a judge?
I was a judge for 10 years in common pleas court.
Common pleas. So that means what kinds of cases did you hear?
Felonies and larger civil cases.
Felonies and larger civil cases. So this case in Starbucks, if this went somewhere, you may or may not hear that?
Probably not. Trespassing is usually a misdemeanor.
A misdemeanor. Okay,
yeah.
So you've seen a lot.
I have.
You've been around the block, 10 years as a judge.
Well, and let me say 10 years, and that was after I was elected. I was an acting judge in municipal courts, which means I would have handled it. I was an acting judge for over 10 years as well.
Okay, so we're going to get a chance to pick your brain, which is what we want to do.
Absolutely.
If you ever want to talk about some of this stuff, discrimination, and you really want to talk to someone who's been around the block, but you are a liberal.
I am. I am.
But you are a friend of the police. But I have biases. And I have biases that I don't see, I don't understand, I don't know about, and I will never see, understand, or know about. I will never be in touch with them because they're deep in my subconscious. And so That's what implicit bias is. And so the conversation right now with the Starbucks situation is like, why'd they call? We need to look at this. Like, why are you calling the police on some people and not other people? Like, what's going on here? So we're going to spend the whole class doing that. And next slide. So here's yesterday there was a protest or a couple days ago. So it's happening, right? So we're going to look at implicit bias. But, next slide, we have a guest today. And our guest is A.J. Wagner, this fine young man right here, who is, wait, you're older than me, right? Aren't you? All right, that's good. All right. This gentleman right here, A.J. And A.J. is here. Well, hang on. Yeah, you're on.
There we go.
A.J., say
There we
hello.
go. Well, first of all, hello. Secondly, the woman behind me, she'd be the better person, but she's babysitting.
All right, okay.
Watching the grandkids.
That's your better half.
My
Yeah.
much better half.
AJ comes to us from Ohio, the fair state of Ohio. And AJ is a former judge. And whenever I talk about these issues in class, AJ, I always say to myself, I get to this place where I say, God, I really wish I had a judge who we could talk to and find out like what's going on.
more often, I think. Yeah.
How many years were you a judge?
I was a judge for 10 years in common pleas court.
Common pleas. So that means what kinds of cases did you hear?
Felonies and larger civil cases.
Felonies and larger civil cases. So this case in Starbucks, if this like went somewhere, you may or may not hear that.
Probably not. Trespassing is usually a misdemeanor.
Misdemeanor. Okay,
Yeah.
so you've seen a lot.
I have.
You've been around the
I
block.
have.
10 years as a judge.
Well, and let me say 10 years, and that was after I was elected. I was an acting judge in municipal courts, which means I would have handled it. I was an acting judge for over 10 years as well.
Okay, so we're going to get a chance to pick your brain, which is what we want to do.
Absolutely.
You know, if you ever have,
Good
you
luck.
want to like talk about some of this stuff, discrimination, and you really want to talk to someone who's been around the block, but you are a liberal.
I
Am I
am.
right?
I am.
But you are a friend of the police. Which was it? Which one was it? What's up, dog? So here's the deal. Let me walk you through implicit bias. This is bias you can't see, you don't recognize it, you don't understand it. It doesn't seem as though it matters. But what we're seeing is that it actually really does matter. Now here's the thing with this. The people so can you go back 2 slides? So half of you saw educated with that, the ones in the front. And the ones in the back saw ignorant. You think, okay, cool, educated, ignorant, it just goes in. It doesn't even pay attention, because all you're being asked to do is look at the face. Focus on the face. But there's this word right here, educated, ignorant. Next slide. So what we know is that if you looked at the slide with the word educated, you're much more likely to pick out one of these folks down on the right, lighter skin. If you looked at the slide with the word ignorant, and we could do this lots of different ways, you're much more likely to have gone in the other direction and remembered that face. This is implicit bias. This is the stuff that's deep inside of us. We think like, wait, hang on a second. All you're doing is showing me a face with a word, ignorant or educated. But yet, associating, you're not looking, it's not all about at the face. It's about the word ignorant or educated. And then where you go toward, lighter skin, educated, darker skin, ignorant. It could be lighter skin, peaceful, darker skin, violent. We can go lots of different ways. This is implicit bias. This is what we're talking about. So in the Starbucks case, hardly anybody is ever racist in the pure sense of the term. I can guarantee that the manager of that Starbucks did not see two black men and say, you know what, I don't like black men. I just let the white guys use the restroom who didn't buy anything, and I just turn the other way because I like white guys or whatever. I tolerate white people, whatever the case is. But black people, nah, they don't fit with the KKK readings that I do and all the neo-Nazi publications and all my racism stuff. I just don't like black people, and so I'm going to discriminate against them. That's not how it went down. It's almost never how it goes down. How it comes down is, in that moment, I'm going to make a decision about, wait, these two people are doing something wrong. These two people are violating something. These two people are trespassing. Something's going on. And I respond in a way that's different than it would be for these two people over here who are of a different background. It could be two men versus two women. It could be two gay women versus two straight women. Could be disabled people and not disabled people. It could be any number of things. But in this case, we're talking about what probably, almost certainly went down at that Starbucks store. And that manager at the Starbucks store is a perfectly fine person, just like any one of us in here, trying to do the right thing, trying to do the right job, trying to be fair to everybody, almost guaranteed that's how that person is. And yet they respond in this other way. They may also have called the police on white people. Maybe the day before they called the police on white people. Maybe they usually call the police on white people, and maybe they usually turn the other way when it's dark-skinned people. Maybe. That's also a possibility. But what we see again and again and again when we control for all the factors and forces regarding bias is that there is this bias inside of people that leads them to treat some people differently than other people. And generally speaking, in our society, the darker the skin, the more likely you are to be treated negatively. Dudes, I don't know this story. I don't know who that person is, the manager of Starbucks. I have no idea. I don't need to know, because that story, I'll never get the answer to that story, but I will get the answer to some other stories. So let me show you some data about implicit bias and why this matters to people. Some of us, to all of us, but some of us in the room, it matters more so than others. Are we good?
Good. We're good. We're good. This is a
Get
good
ready
break.
To jump
foundation. Good foundation for
All
this.
right. So here we go. Let's do another one. You already looked at this. I did this when I did the race mixing. Remember when I switched roles? So go to the slide. So wait, go back one. So what we did was we gave. Do you remember this one? Dude, where we did a resume and we got a white guy and a black guy, and then later we redid it with a white guy and a Latino guy, and we made them exactly the same, and they went in with their resume and they applied for jobs and they were exactly the same. They walked the same, they talked the same, they dressed alike, they shook hands in the same way. Everything was exactly the same. And the resume only varied on one thing. Sometimes the white guy had a resume that said he had a felony drug conviction, and sometimes the black guy had the resume with a felony drug conviction. And they really just wanted to see, would they treat them the same? The resumes were exactly the same. They were the same. Everything was exactly the same. Okay, we got that? So, all right, next slide. So what we see is the most desirable applicant is going to be, dude, this thing needs batteries. The most desirable applicant is going to be the white guy without a record. Okay, are we cool on that? You got it? Do you understand? You remember this? You got it? Okay, the white guy without a record. Who's the second most desirable applicant? Is it going to be the black guy without a record or the white guy without a record? And if you remember this from the race mixing piece, go ahead, in the next slide, it is the white guy with a felony drug conviction. So all things the same. Y'all all right? Here, dude, can you just be a black guy for right now, dude? You're Indian, right? Yeah. Hey, you're good enough. You're close enough, bro. Mike, come up. So look, you kind of look alike. You're the go-to white guy. Yes, because you sit in the front. The go-to white guy. So listen, all things the same. They'll choose him with a felony drug conviction over him. They're the exact same people, y'all, right? Exactly the same. And so what we say, what we all say, what your parents say, what your grandparents say, what society says, what every damn one of you is going to say when you get out into the job market is you're going to choose the best person for the job. And I'm here to tell you the implicit bias data is saying that's not what's happening. Your parents aren't doing it. Your uncles aren't doing it. Your aunts aren't doing it. Your grandparents aren't doing it. Your neighbors aren't doing it. The nicest person you know who is the most anti-racist is still got implicit bias, and they're not doing it. Because everywhere we look, we see this stuff, that this guy will get treated differently than this guy, even by the nicest people, even by black and brown people. Doesn't matter. It's going to happen. And so, look they would choose this dude with the felony drug conviction over him. Come on, y'all, right? Dude, do you understand? Can you go back to the Starbucks, to that photo? Do you understand why these people are outside of Starbucks? Do you get that? If this was me, think about my passion. Think about Bossum being here. Think about all the things we do. If this was me, and I saw this stuff, and I knew this stuff, and lots of black and brown people in this class see and know this stuff, those people know it, they live it, and I'd be pissed. I'd be pissed. And then we got like white people sitting around going like, but you know, I don't know, like maybe it's really not like that, or I don't know, you can't really know, but you know, like, this is where I drop an F-bomb, right? Come on. So go back to the, oh, sorry, bro. I'm running you ragged, dude. It's Pride Week though, we're good. Dude, one more. Oh. All right, so look. Do you see how unfair that is? Do you fundamentally see how unfair? So do you understand in this case, when they're exactly the same and they went in for the interview and they shook hands the same way, they looked in the eyes in the same way, everything was the same, everything. Do you understand what makes you think that the manager at Starbucks didn't respond to the black people, to these two black guys differently than she would with a couple of white guys? Why would we even effing imagine that in a million years? When we control the situation, we see that people don't treat people fairly. And you know what this means, y'all? This means that white people, you have a definitive advantage over black and brown people. And we see it with women as well. Men, you have a definite advantage over women. Because, why? Because this skin color, me and Mike right here, we got affirmative action on our side. Because of that right there, dudes. All you do is you hear like, oh yeah, there's these scholarships for black guys and black women and disabled people and blah, blah, blah. Dude, please, your whole effing life, you will have advantages. Your whole life you will have advantages. Look at that. Those are serious numbers, man. Those are serious numbers. Is there any white person in this class that would be like, nah, it's cool, dog. I'd go through my life as a dark-skinned person. It's cool. It's all right. No. You're going to put on your resume that you have dark skin somehow. Send them a photo. Send them a photo of, dude, what's your name again? Sage. Send them a photo of Sage. White guys. He's a nice-looking dude. Look at him. Send him this guy. He's probably nicer looking than you are. Send him a photo. See like how that works out for you, right? You want to do that? It's like, come on. So when I go back to that photo of the people at Starbucks and I see them protesting and they take over the Starbucks store, and I know, AJ, we know this, man. What are the white people saying, man? What are white people saying about those people taking over Starbucks, man?
Oh, you know what? What are these fools doing? They don't even know the whole story. They don't even know that lady. Those guys probably were in there causing all kinds of trouble, yelling and screaming. They were probably, dissing everybody that was coming in. They had to get rid of those folks.
Yeah, that was not racism. They were trespassing.
They were trespassing. They're criminals.
They should call the police on them.
Yeah. And yeah.
Yeah.
Calling.
All right, thanks, gentlemen. Dude, okay, here's another one real fast. We did this one already. It's very simple. Just send out resumes, man. We just took a resume and started sending it out. 5,000 places. Boom. Send it out. Just change the name. That's all. Very simple job. Jobs like Home Depot or wherever. Just send it out. Look, 50% more responses. Marianne, Greg, Brett. Like, come on. Look, who's going to, come on. First off, black people, brown people, stop naming your kids like Muhammad. I get like the Muhammad thing. Jameek's a cool name, right? But Greg, you want to get ahead in life, Greg is a nice name. Nice white name. Brett. Name your kid. Rashid. Yeah, I dig Rashid. Nice name.
Sam.
Brett. Yeah.
That's a nice name, Sam.
Yeah, Sam's a nice name, dude. Next one. This guy here. Look at this. So he said, oh, but it's different at Harvard and Princeton and Yale and all these kinds of big schools. So we'll do the job applications and we'll just change for the elite universities, right? Because if you're black or brown and you go to an elite school, you are set for life. Look at the differences here. Look at that. Responses to job applications. Basically, white people who went to cages. Do you believe that fucking brown people are closer to monkeys than they are human? Fucking none of that. Oh, there was an F-bomb. Sorry about that. You're not, none of that. None of you are going to say anything even remotely racist. Not a single thing. And that's the point of this. It's all deep within the subconscious. All right, next one, man. And then we're going to go. Oh, okay, you ready? So, dudes, who's got some stories? AJ, the judge is here. Who's got a couple of discrimination stories? AJ and I will weigh in on them. Who's got a discrimination story you want to share that happened to you? Anybody? Who's got it?
We're at Penn State. Apparently, it
doesn't have to be here. No, it wouldn't be here because there's no discrimination here in Happy Valley. Who's got a discrimination story they want to share? Because if you don't have one, we'll just move on. But, dude. George. Dude, all right.
At the top. Come on, you can do it.
All right, man.
You can make it.
You all don't have to come. Well, you can come down front. Do you want to come down front? How many of you have stories you want to share? Wait, anybody else? Well, hang on. You share your story.
There's some over here.
Yeah, you just stay here.
There's some over here, Sam.
All right, so I was 16, driving in Atlanta, and a white gentleman in a pickup truck ran me off the road. I had 4 of my friends in the car with me. The off-duty police officer in his private vehicle decided to follow my vehicle instead of the vehicle that ran me off the road, and I was pulled over by 4 police cars, and they got out with their guns drawn and were beating on the windows of the vehicle.
Were you in a city, or where were you?
I was in Riverdale, Georgia, so that's kind of like suburbs.
Okay.
So not in a major city.
Yeah.
And
lots of discrimination in suburbs.
No, hang on.
Yeah, I had to go to court. I had to get a lawyer. Paid a few $1,000s in fees for me being ran off the road by a white guy.
Yeah, but come on, bro. The cops must have thought you provoked the guys.
Well, you
in the
had
pickup
four black kids in a car.
Yeah, you didn't belong there, did you?
I was in my neighborhood.
Yeah.
I was down the street from my
You
neighborhood.
don't belong in your neighborhood, do you?
Well, I mean, that's Georgia in the South, so hey.
Yeah.
But hang on, AJ, though. You're the judge. What more do you need from that? What did the cop, what more do you need from that? Because you can't take George's word for it here.
Here's the sad part of this whole thing. As a judge, what I have to listen for, if somebody comes before me and says, I've been discriminated against, tell me about it. But unless you can say, I know I've been discriminated against because that guy called me the N-word, or because that guy said, you know, we don't want any blacks in this neighborhood.
I threatened him, so I ran him off the road.
Right. Unless you get actual expressions of discrimination, nothing I can do about it.
So the police in this case.
Police in this case can walk into a courtroom. He alleges some kind of discrimination. They say, were you there? Yes. Did you do these things that the police say you did? And he may say no, and said, fine, we'll take it to trial. But we're not going to rule on discrimination because unless you can tell me these cops said something racial, something that says they are racist, it doesn't exist. It doesn't exist in the court system unless you catch them saying something racial or racist. And
so
if you don't, it just isn't there.
Yeah, but on the side being a black man, it's my word against his when we go to court. So, I mean, I'm not going to go here and say all the things they said when they were saying get out that effing car and all this other stuff, but a lot of words were exchanged from them. And when we got to court, basically it was like, hey, well, the officer said it didn't happen. They didn't do the body cams and stuff at the time, so apparently it didn't happen.
And a lot of what they said probably wasn't in their report.
No, none of it was in their report.
Wasn't in their
Yeah.
report, right. And that's what they'll present to the court is it's not in my report, I didn't say it. I didn't do it.
Uh-huh.
And what you said is in the report and then some probably.
Okay, and so what the implicit bias data would say would be the cops may or may not be, quote, racist. They might be acting on conscious ideas, and they might be thinking that they're actually being fair across the board. They might actually be really fair. They might be fair in 90% of their interactions with people, but in your particular case, it sounds like it wasn't. Although we don't have the other side of the story, right? We only have your side. You know, we trust you because we like you, but, you know.
Let me ask you, in Riverdale, Georgia, it was Riverdale?
Yes.
In Riverdale, Georgia, is the majority population white or black?
At that time, it was majority white.
Okay, and so if you took the thing to trial,
Yes.
you would end up with a predominantly white jury.
Yes.
Okay, and who do you think they're going to believe?
The white officer.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Oh, you got another one.
Yeah, I got one
Oh,
more. I was
going
going
to
to say, I lucked out. My name's George. So when I speak very clearly when I do interviews. So I actually showed up to an interview one time, and the first thing he said to me was, "Oh, you're black." Which, yeah, that was
It's
kind
good
of
he could notice.
Yeah, it wasn't, "Hey, how you doing?" It's,
Oh, you're not
black."
blind.
Yeah. And then the other thing Sam was saying, a lot of people, black people, we name our children different names. A lot of it just is the history of America. So black families kind of want to separate ourselves and stand apart and have our own identity and uniqueness.
Totally.
And that's why people necessarily don't have these standard American names.
No, listen, totally. No, just like people have different classes, right? Like the blue blood white people have certain names for kids, and like working class white people have names for kids. It's very much a cultural thing. Like you don't find anyone who's working at Merrill Lynch on the 57th floor of a building in New York named Billy Bob.
And Sam, I might add, you also don't find them in the courtroom.
You don't find them in a courtroom.
You won't fiend them in the court in criminal court.
The blue bloods.
The blue bloods.
Yeah,
They won't
meaning
be there.
wealthy people.
They
Who
won't
else?
be there.
Who else has a story? Who had their hand up?
We had one down here. This young one right here. I'm
Wait.
sorry, I say young woman because I'm old.
Wait, who?
In the gray shirt, right behind you.
Dude.
What,
am I
did you
on
have
drugs?
your hand up?
Dude, did you have a story, bro?
No.
Go ahead.
This woman, second one in. Yay.
Yeah.
No, I was saying someone down there.
Oh,
Yeah.
you're
Who else
saying-
has a
okay.
story? Anyone has a story? Dude, come on, black people. The problem is, you can make all these white people feel like this shit ain't happening, bro. You gotta have a story, man. Look at you. Oh wait, you were like the. Okay. All right.
Sometimes, like when I go
You
to
could stand up though, and then we can get you.
sometimes when I go to Sephora, I get like followed around,
Uh huh.
and it's just kind of annoying.
So you get followed around, and you don't notice following. Do you notice them following white people around?
No.
Do you look for it?
I don't really look for it. I just like at first I'm just like, well, maybe I'm overthinking it, but then I take them on a tour. Like we go to the perfume section and then they're still following me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to go like to. No, this is the kind of thing, right? So, this in itself isn't a problem. Like you're not being arrested,
No,
or if
no,
you're not
it's-
shoplifting, it's like okay, what's the big? But it's annoying
It's
though,
just, yeah.
and like, yeah, it's annoying.
Right.
And we know this happens, by the way. We've like done testing studies because it's all about testing studies, where we very carefully we take two people, we'll find the lighter skinned version of you, who dresses like you, is your height, et cetera, right? And you will send you into a store, and one will go this way, and the other will go this way. You go at different times, and we see that the person, some people are followed around, and other people are not. Much more likely to be. We see that, and that's like okay. I had students one time, but anybody, who else has a story? Who else got a story? Anybody that they want to share?
Sam.
Dude, I had these two students one time. They were roommates, and the white guy would. Oh, dude, hang on one second. And the white guy, they would go into the store and they would shoplift. They were just my students. They didn't work for me. But the white guy, the black guy would go in, and all the security would follow that guy, and the white guy would be filling up his jacket with stuff, right? And I'm like, all right, man.
Listen, you know, and this was proved in Ferguson, Missouri, and it's been proven in other places too. That you know, if you pull over folks in black drivers, and for the purpose of checking their cars out to find out if they have any drugs, and you pull over folks who are white. Now, first of all, black drivers are much more likely to get pulled over. But the second part of that is that you're much more likely to find drugs if you pull over the white folks.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And yet, who's getting arrested for drugs? It's darker
black
skinned
folks.
people. All right, bro, stand up though, so we can see you. Yeah, dude, she stood up, dog.
All right, so basically, like,
You wouldn't make a white folks stand up, would you?
Yeah.
oh my gosh, here we go.
Oh,
with this.
dog, yeah.
All right, so anyway, I like moved out the hood into like this little white suburban area type, basically like school type. And then like one day, like in the spring, I get real bad allergies. So I went to school, my eyes was like bloodshot, and like I already went to the doctors or whatever, and they gave me like eye drops and everything, but my eyes are still red. And then as soon as I came to school, I was on my way to class, and the principal just kind of like pulled me over, was like, "We about to see if you intoxicated or anything." And then I see like people like, I'm not gonna say, but my white friends come to school high every day, intoxicated off of pills and stuff. Like that's what type of school it was. And then like they pulled me over, and made me test, and then like I had nothing on me and stuff like that. Like they like checked all my bags and stuff to see like if I was selling or like was on any type of weed or anything. So then like when I told them, and I told them like where my eye drops was, it was in the office, and they still suspended me because like I didn't give my eye drops to the nurse, like cause.
Well, you still got suspended?
Yes, I
Yeah.
still got suspended.
He violated a rule.
I had.
They
yeah,
caught
they
him.
said I violated a rule. Like they looked for every reason just to suspend me.
Damn, dog.
You know,
What do you do as a judge in these cases like that when you know they're unfair? When you
What-
know people have been treated unfairly?
First, I think it was the first year I was a judge in the common police court. I had a young man who was pulled over in the city of Dayton. That's where I was a judge. In the city of Dayton because he did not have a bell or a horn on his bicycle. He was pulled over because he did not have a warning device on his bicycle.
A bell or a
A
horn?
bell or a whistle or something,
Wait,
yes.
So is that a rule?
That is a law in the city of Dayton that you have to have some kind of warning thing on your bicycle. He also didn't have a light. Okay, you have to have a light on your bicycle. It was
Okay.
broad daylight, but he didn't have a light on his bicycle either, so
Okay.
they pull him over.
So this
On
is
the side.
so this is one of those laws that the police can use to just hassle people, right?
And so they pull him over. He's on his bike. They get him, and they you know that gives him grounds because he's done something illegal. That means they can pat him down. They find a small amount, very, very small amount of crack on him. And so they arrest him. Now, this is a young man who's 18, 19 years old, no record up to that point. Now he comes before me They tell me the story that he got pulled over, and he's going to plead guilty to the charge of possessing drugs. And I was upset about that. And afterwards, I took his lawyer aside afterwards and said, why on earth didn't you bring a motion to suppress that evidence with that situation? And he said, because, Judge, it wouldn't matter. You would have had to have ruled in his favor because he was doing something illegal. You would have had to rule that that was a legitimate stop. And I said, what if I hadn't? The prosecutor would have appealed it, and it would have been back in front of you in a few months. I mean, it's not going to make any difference. He broke the law. He has to pay for it. Now, would they ever do that to a white guy? I never saw a white guy in front of me that didn't have a light on his bike. I never saw that kind of violation. I rarely saw a white guy get pulled over for not using the turn signal. I rarely saw a white guy get pulled over who was making some kind of furtive movement in his car. That just didn't happen to white people. Everybody I saw was poor. To the Riverdale gentleman, everybody I saw came pretty much from the city of Dayton. The suburbs, no. They didn't arrest people in the suburbs.
Wait, so listen, I want to say, so here you are. The data are clear about this, right? I mean, I can show you the data about who's getting pulled over for not using a turn signal, for not having a light, for the broken tail light.
Stop and frisk.
The light on their license plate, whatever it is. I can show you the data on this, that people in this room who have darker skin are much more likely to get pulled over than people in this room with lighter skin. And you're just telling me, you're telling us you never saw anybody standing in front of you with these, like the not having a light on their bicycle or whatever.
I don't recall. I don't recall ever. And you would not see that happen. You would also, again, not see people from the suburbs. You'd only see people who came from the city. Who
are more
poor.
likely to be black and brown.
Black, brown, and poor. More likely to be black and brown. And, highly disproportionately, you would see in front of you black kids, young kids, and poor people.
So how do the police themselves, as you're a judge, right? So you're not hanging out at barbecues with police officers, right?
That's true.
There are people in here whose parents are police officers and that sort of thing, right? Yeah. How do they see this? Like, do they justify, like, what?
Sure.
Do other people in the courtroom talk about the racism? Like, what's other judges?
Here's what's hard for the police, and this is a hard thing. If you would go to the neighborhood meetings in the city, and you'd go out to the different neighborhoods and to their meetings and their collective meetings, et cetera, what you would hear in the African American neighborhoods is you would hear people complaining because their shit's getting ripped off, and they're having a problem with gunplay, and kids are getting hurt and killed, and they're afraid to go out of their houses at night, and all kinds of things that are true. That happen in poor neighborhoods. And they're demanding high police protection. It's a real dichotomy because in the African American neighborhoods, they want to be protected. They want to feel safe. They want to feel like there aren't drugs being dealt on their streets, et cetera.
Yeah.
But they also know that what's happening, then we send out the police and they do all this, and then it's all their kids that end up in jail.
That's right. And so for the kids, so even right now, if I think
problem.
about how with all the new drug epidemic in the U.S., suddenly it's a medical issue, right? So y'all are everybody, everybody's out taking pills, and people are dying from pills, and like, oh my gosh, right? But now, because it's happening in the white world,
it's happening in the suburbs.
It suddenly becomes this medical issue, and it's not really a crime issue.
Not really a crime
you
issue.
would see. So that's being played out in the courts as well.
And it shouldn't be a crime issue.
So we're gonna watch a video.
Right.
And wait, dude, we'll come back to you. All right. I want to.
Excuse me, I had a story.
All right, go ahead, man.
Okay.
Better be a good one.
Wait, where are you?
Right
All
here.
right.
I don't know if it's good
all
or
right,
not.
man.
Oh, good. Good.
Hi.
Okay. Hi.
So this was before when my family first moved to a different neighborhood, and we hadn't met everyone yet. So I was driving. I was coming back from school. This was in high school. And I went and I pulled in my driveway and like went throughout the day, yada, yada, yada. My brothers and sisters came home. And mind you, we're the only family of color in this neighborhood. And we ended up getting the cops. So then anyways, I left and I came back that night. And I went and I pulled in the driveway, light came on. And next thing you know, the cops are at the door. And then I answer it and it said, oh, like we got a complaint about someone potentially breaking and entering. I said, no, we live here. Then they're like, oh, like, can I see some sort of identification, like that this is my address? And I said, for what? So anyways, we were going back and forth because I did not feel that I needed to present that information. So Judge, how do you feel about that?
I think you have every right not to present your information. But,
Wait,
but
does she have to present the information if they
No.
ask for it?
she does if she's like jaywalked or something, which is illegal. You kind of have to tell them what your name is.
I'm
you
in
don't
my home,
you
though.
don't have to present that information, but it probably avoids escalating the situation if you do. But do you know?
Two things with that, though. Why, in the first place, were the cops called for breaking and entering? We're the
Right.
only family of color.
Yeah.
You see?
That you just
No.
answered the question why
That's
they
right.
were called.
No, I know. I
yeah,
know
you're the
answer.
only family of color.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
And this is the incumbent, like white people. You know, like the most recent gentleman that just got. Hang on, we're going to come back to you in a second because you had two things. But when we hear about people being the most recent gentleman, was it in Minnesota it was out in California who got shot by the police. They said it was some other person that called. It's like, no, he's got a gun, and this is like, come on, man. Like, would you have said he's got a cell phone? And would you have said, if it was a white guy that was holding a cell phone, would you have seen it as a gun? And this is the thing. This is implicit bias. This is that stuff. So, yeah, no, like breaking and entering. If you were a you might have been a white family who was like outside trying to get your windows unstuck at 10 o'clock at night, and people wouldn't have called. You know what I mean? But you're just kind of pulling into your driveway, so they called. This is the shit that sends me
Exactly.
over
It's
the
a
edge. All right,
shame.
next thing. You had two things.
No, other than that, I do, no, that was my only thing. No. But also, like, for my name, so my name is Scout, like S-C-O-U-T, like Girl Scout. And normally, like, if I go for an interview or something and they see me, it's like on two ends of the matter. So one, gender, and the second one is race. They'll see me and it'll be like mind-boggling, one, because I'm a girl, and two, because I'm black. It's just like, they're like, oh, we were not expecting this. Like a few times, they're like, we had debates in the office to see who you were gonna look like. We did not expect that at all. So, this is cool. So yeah.
Wow.
But that's it.
Yeah.
Scout's on your birth certificate.
Yes, it is.
That's a killer name.
I like
so
it.
listen,
Yeah.
wait, do you have some, thanks, Scout. Listen, do you have some quick advice for students about speaking to the police? Last time you were here, I know you said a couple things.
Well, let me ask a question, and I hope you don't mind this, Sam. Let me ask a question of every black dude, maybe every person of color in here. Has your family had the talk with you? The talk about what do you do if you run into the police, if the police pull you over? Raise your hand. Have you had that talk? No? You have? You have? You guys have?
Dude, you had
The
the
white
talk.
guy has?
Yeah, all right.
Yeah. What you do if the police pull you over? Some white folks too. Well, I know among my black friends, most of them have had that talk with their kids. Is what do you do if you're pulled over by the police? And their advice to their kid, who they want to come home that night, is you listen to them, you do what they say, you go along. The dudes at Starbucks, you saw how they walked out of there peacefully, calmly. They know better. They know you don't challenge the police. That just digs the hole deeper. We'll sort this out later. It's embarrassing. It's wrong. But if you challenge the police, all of a sudden you got resisting arrest. You may fling around. Then you scrape somebody. Then you're charged with assaulting a police officer. And then you're charged with some other kind of thing. And next thing you know, they're slamming you to the ground. And they're putting a gun in your face. And sometimes they shoot, which you've also seen in many different videos. Somebody was talking about walking around the store, and where I came from, I was involved on the periphery because this was after I was retired from being a judge. I represented folks from Black Lives Matter. And there was a young man in our area who was walking around a store, and he picked up a toy gun. John Crawford was his name. And he was walking through the store with this toy gun. Somebody calls the police and says he's pointing it at people and he's threatening them. So the police come into the store.
So now the store, it's already escalated.
It's already escalated. Now the police come into the store, guns drawn. They're looking for this dude. They find him. They yell, and he's on the phone with his fiancée, paying no attention. The gun is at his side. He's kind of leaning on it, and he's paying no attention. And they yell, police, put the gun down. And they give him about a 2.5 second warning at the most, and boom, boom, boom. He's dead. Just like that. Some guy buying a toy gun for his kid is gone. When they reviewed all the tapes and they looked at all the film, he didn't point it at anybody. He didn't wave it at anybody. And what killed me at the end, and what I argued to the judge when I was representing these folks who protested, is who I represented. But what killed me at the end was that I'm representing some guys, and I've got the police chief in this town telling me that because they were protesting on the store grounds and they got arrested for trespassing, they've got to be held responsible for their actions. But the dude who called this in, the guy who called this in and lied about what was going on, outright lied about what was happening, he's walking free. He never had to pay any responsibility. I argued that to the judge, and at least we got reduced charges and we got pretty minimal punishment for that court because it was in a white area. We did okay, but because I think they bought into that argument was a problem. But the white guy was never charged who called it in, never. Actually 2 people ended up dying because there was a woman who was running out of the stores. The cops are coming in, guns drawn, and saying, "Get out, get out, get out, get out," to people. Had a heart attack. She had a heart attack and died. Young woman. But a tragic situation all the way around. But the guy who caused the panic and caused the problem, nothing.
And that's where the racism and the bias come into play in a very dangerous way.
Very dangerous way.
And so what happens is when we're not looking at that stuff and we're not paying attention to it, we're more likely to contribute in that way. What do students need to say to the police and not? Well, first off, you never talk to the police, right?
Well, other than yes sir, no sir, here's my name, here's my ID. Right. Otherwise, if you get arrested for anything, just clam up. Say you want to see your lawyer. I want an attorney, and then let the attorney do their job.
You say nothing.
Nothing.
Nothing. I want an attorney. That's it. Because what you say not can be used against you. It will. Dude, it will. Can you emphasize that?
This guy's driving down the road. It's a true story. I was at court one time, and this cop said, it was a Monday morning, and I was representing some DUI, some drunk driver. But he asked how my weekend was, and I said, fine. I said, how was yours? He said, well, the strangest thing happened to me. I was walking down, I'm driving down the road, and this guy, I pull him over for speeding. And I walk up to the car and I said to him, you know why I pulled you over? He said, you mean that rape back there? And the cop calmly went back to his car and he said, has anybody reported in a rape? And they said, yeah, just a minute ago. And he said, well, I got him. And they did. They had him. So that's all he said was, yeah, so don't talk. I mean, that's just, they have to prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt.
So nothing.
And you have a right to remain silent.
But that's a
That's a strange story.
That's pretty fucked
but,
up.
Yeah.
All right. Can we? Let me see. I want to see if I want to watch this video. If I want to go. Dude, let's go to the next one. We're not going to do the video yet. Let's just see. Maybe we'll end with that. Go to the next one. So, take a look at these numbers here. When you look at, this is per 100,000 people, 2010, male incarceration rates. Look at this, per 100,000, okay? These are really big differences, y'all, right? Like, what this means right here is that males, black men, must be committing so much crime, so much more crime than white men. When you look at this, is that even possible, Judge?
You know, I once asked one of our police captains in Dayton, I said, where does more crime occur? In the white neighborhoods, the black neighborhoods? And he said, oh, in the white neighborhoods for sure. He said, now, there's more murders in the black neighborhood, which is an issue, and which is a problem that we need to address. But you want to talk about assaults and break-ins and everything? Go to the white neighborhoods. That's where they're at.
So, next slide. Here's population, 12%, 61%, more or less. Okay, go ahead. Juvenile incarceration rates in the U.S. per 100,000. Look. It's a real, dude, this goes to, Micah, this goes to your story, right? Right here, juvenile incarceration, right? Just like you come in and you have bloodshot eyes, we're going to look at your bloodshot eyes, we're not going to look at this other person over here who's like, they got bloodshot eyes because they're puffing away on some weed, wacky tobacco, as they say. Judge, you didn't ever have to prosecute people for smoking weed, did you?
Oh, yeah.
You had to?
Well, I didn't prosecute. I mean, was I a judge in trials?
Yeah.
Were in,
Did you let them
when they
off?
were charged? I don't think I ever had one that didn't plead guilty.
Seriously?
I don't think I ever did a trial on a marijuana possession. Because in Ohio, it's a misdemeanor. And
Oh, yeah, it doesn't really matter. Okay.
It's
All
like
right,
a traffic ticket.
All right. Next slide. So, look at here. Take a look at this. But wait, can you go back one? Do you see these differences here, y'all, right? Do you see that? If we go around and talk to people, there's just no way racism is not involved in this. There is no way. It's just not possible. In bias. Next one. So look at this. Percent of people who sell drugs. Okay, this is a national survey on drug use and health. Go to the next slide. Illegal drug use and incarceration rates. So drug users. So of all the drug users, 70% about are white, and a little over 11% are black. And look at who's in prison for drugs. Look at how it just flips like that. Why is that? What happens? Like, why are there many more black people in prison for drugs?
We only enforce the laws in poor neighborhoods where blacks are more likely to live. We don't
So
enforce
urban
drug
neighborhoods
laws.
also,
Urban
right?
neighborhoods.
In rural areas, it's harder to really enforce laws.
They don't have the police force, they don't have the staffs to do it. You want to get a grant from the Justice Department to beef up your staff or whatever? Tell them you're going to do drug enforcement and you'll get a grant and you'll get to go do it. But only the bigger departments will get to do that. That means in the urban department.
Okay, so we're really policing certain areas much more so than others.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We send the drug task force. We had what the county had, Montgomery County in Ohio had a drug task force, they called it. But they rarely patrolled the suburbs. They were almost always in the city.
Dude.
And that's where they did it.
All right, next one, man. Here's arrest rates for marijuana possession by race. Just look at this. Arrest rates per 100,000 people. Look at it. The dark is black people. Dude, just look. It's unbelievable. Like everywhere you look. You know what I mean? It's so unfair and uneven. And hardly anybody in the criminal justice system is an outright racist. Did you ever meet any of them, like members of the KKK and stuff like that?
No.
No, they
And,
all
you
think
know,
they're being fair and they're just doing
they
their
do.
job.
And like I said, I had great regard for a lot of our police officers, and they were trying their best based on what they were given and what was in front of them, and even our judges. But what they were brought, or what they had, was they were told to go patrol the black neighborhoods. They were told to go do this, and
Yeah,
they did their
so they
jobs,
do
and
it.
they did what they thought they were supposed to do, and so you end up looking like this.
Next one.
And there's a lot of racial bias in saying that kind of thing,
Yeah.
and saying, go patrol that neighborhood,
Yeah.
but not that neighborhood.
So, you know what? We should watch. Let's not do any more of this. Let's watch that video. Let's watch this video, y'all,
Okay.
and then I want you to comment on this.
Okay.
So the question is, would this happen? Well, just go for it.
I was coming back from the wood and nickel.
So, AJ, I have a couple questions, but when the police lie like that, which they clearly did, that means 115 pounds, flipped the cop over on his back. That's just a lie. I'm not there. I wasn't there. If that is what's written in the police report, it's a lie, right?
Right.
As a judge, you know it's a lie. It's the police report. You're going to know that. What happens to the police when they lie like that, when they do that?
Well, somebody had a comment?
Yeah, she said nothing.
Nothing. Nothing.
Go ahead. What happens?
Unfortunately, she's right.
Nothing?
Most often. Most
Well,
often.
what
Every once in a while
power-
something happens. First of all, as a judge, I will tell you that would not likely come before me. What would happen is the charges would be dropped, or she would not be charged with anything once they figured out that the police lied. They would probably, these kind of high-profile things usually end up without charges. But the damage has been done. I mean, a young woman has been scarred for life, and she's harmed, she's hurt. A lawsuit will ensue, probably. They probably sued the city, the police. Cities pay out urban areas pay out amazing amount of monies for police brutality and for police misconduct. And
Like hundreds of millions a year.
oh, sometimes,
right?
depending on what cities, usually sometimes beyond their budgets, but they have to try and budget for that kind of thing, and they have to pay out. In Chicago, I can't remember what the figure is, but yeah, it's literally hundreds of millions. It's a ton of money that they have to pay out because of police misconduct, and yet the police are seldom seriously
accountable.
disciplined.
And so
fully
why
accountable.
aren't they held accountable? Like what? Like look at this story here, right? Like
yeah.
come on.
You know, all those good police I like, and there are a lot of good. If I have one fault with them, it's that they don't stand up to their own. They, in the legal profession, I think we try pretty hard when there's a bad lawyer that we'll figure out ways to get his ticket pulled, because we know that that's bad for us. That's bad for the whole profession. We don't want that in the profession. And of all the lawyers I dealt with, thousands of them, there's not two handsfuls that I've ever dealt with that were really crooked or dishonest. And I think the same is true with cops. The problem is the good cops shield the bad cops. One cop says it went this way, and the other cops will all say, yeah, that's how it went down.
So tell me
That's the
though what
problem.
happens, because so I know you're not a cop, right? But
Right.
you spend enough time in the courtrooms. What happens in this case that these people are looking for a man with a goatee, and they encounter this who's stocky or whatever it's, and they encounter this person? Like, how is that? How does that go anywhere? Like how?
The implicit bias you talk about.
Yeah.
It takes over, and it takes over at a time when, in Bakersfield, California is fairly populous, but, in a lot of these places, what happens is most cops don't run into felons day after day, and it's not
Yeah,
like
right.
TV. And all of a sudden they got, they get a call and somebody's, there's, that might be
Something's going on.
boom, and and all of a sudden they're not thinking, they're not processing it, they're not figuring it out, they're just, there's a black person and boom, let's go.
I think what I would say about, that first study that I put up there, which was like with the faces, and with these kinds of studies with implicit bias, when we control for other factors and forces, and the only causal variable that's left on the table is the race one or the gender one or something, right? The bias one, that's the only thing that's on the table. Everywhere we do a study, everywhere we look for this, we find bias. Everywhere. When we control for all the other possibilities, we find bias. And so it's like this is just part of that it's sad, but look, when I look around the room, I know that it's more troubling for some people than for other people. It's infinitely more troubling. And that's like, I know that you and I know, I told a story about the time when I got pulled over by the police and we were smoking, doing bong hits and beer, and the window got rolled down and the smoke came, but the cop even got high after we rolled the window down because he breathed in the smoke, and it was like the guy, and all he did was ask for our potato chips because he had the munchies already. All right, but anyway. But the bottom line is, it's like these things that you just get away with, and it's just not part of it. And it's like we don't see it. You and I don't see it when I'm driving down the road and not getting picked up. I don't see it when I get the interview or have the conversation with somebody or get someone to call me back on the phone, that I don't have any idea that it has something to do with the fact that I'm a man or that I'm white. I don't see that, so I never engage in the bias. If I don't see these kinds of things, and these are happening all the time, it's like I would never see the bias, and that's part of the problem is people in the dominant groups don't see it, and we're not willing to look at it, and we're not willing to engage. And you don't get away from it if you don't interact with people.
And some of us, when we do see it, we just deny it.
We deny it.
Yeah.
But dude, if you don't interact with people, if you're not, like Bassem, you met this Iraqi Muslim. And so then if you're anywhere in your life and you meet an Iraqi Muslim, right away you have something in common with them. You're like, oh, I heard this Iraqi Muslim talking, and et cetera. And so you're engaged. It means that instead of being this far away, you can be a little closer. And that right there is breaking down the stereotypes and breaking down the bias. Anyway, Judge, thanks for coming. Yeah. And if you have a question for AJ, come down and talk to him. He's here.